Resisting transparency eroding public trust. Last year, presiding officer Anil Masi was caught on CCTV camera manipulating votes in Chandigarh mayor election to help the BJP to secure victory. The incident underlined the importance of enforcing transparency in the electoral process to detect and prevent election fraud. It is ironic that even before the year ended, central government brought an amendment to the Rule 93 Clause 2 of the Conduct of Election Rules 1961 to restrict public access to election-related records. The amendment came days after the Punjab and Haryana High Court directed the Election Commission of India to provide information about the Rule 93 Clause 2 of the Conduct of Election Rules. Copies of Form 17C and CCTV footage of the assembly elections in Haryana were among the records sought by the petitioner. Rule 93 of the Conduct of Election Rules provides a framework for people to obtain information related to elections. Rule 93 Clause 2 originally stated that other than records specifically exempt from Rule 93 Clause 1, all papers relating to elections shall be available to people to inspect and take care of. The amendment The amendment to Rule 93 Clause 2 narrows the scope of people's right to information by adding a qualification that only papers as specified in these rules relating to election shall be open to public inspection. Records relating to electoral process including Form C, video recordings and CCTV footage will potentially get caught in the crosshairs of the new amendment. The role of the ECI in the matter is particularly disconcerting. One of the safeguards in the Representation of People's Act to prevent the ruling party from arbitrarily misusing its power to frame rules that the rules can be made only after consulting the Election Commission. It is baffling why the institution vested with the responsibility of ensuring free and fair elections is opposed to transparency, especially at a time when serious questions have been raised about sanctity of the electoral process. In the general elections of 2024, the ECI did not put out voter turnout figures in absolute numbers after the completion of voting in the initial phases. This, coupled with an unusually high revision of 6% in voter turnout in some phases of the election, without any explanation, prompted a public demand for disclosure of Form 17. Part 1 of this form is filled by the presiding officer of each polling station at close of voting and is submitted to the returning officer of the constituency. It contains information on the voter turnout and number of voters recorded in the EVM. Part 2 is filled on the day of counting by noting the votes secured by each candidate and recording in the EVMs. The documents reveal whether or not voter turnout tallies with the votes polled and counted. Several political parties also sought copies of Form 17C after the general elections, claiming an abnormally large increase in voter turnout between the figures declared by ECI and close of polls on the day of voting and final turnout declared a few days later. For instance, an ally of the BJP, the Biju Janata Dal, claimed a massive increase in figure between the two figures in some constituencies in Odisha, raising doubts about the integrity in the election process. In the assembly elections held in Haryana and Maharashtra, similar concerns were raised and applications were against filed seeking copies of the Form 17C and other election records. Unfortunately, all these requests were stonewalled by the ECI. In a petition to the ECI, the BJD complained that even its candidates were denied copies of Form 17C, despite making requests under the RPA Act and Right to Information Act 2015. Further, the matter of proactive disclosure of Form 17C was agitated in the Supreme Court. The ECI opposed it on special grounds that there is no legal mandate to share Form 17C with anyone other than candidates and political parties through their designated polling agents. In fact, it claimed that there is one-to-one relationship between each one Form 17C and its possessor, and its unrestricted disclosure is amendable to mischief as people may mask the images. Further, it argued that there is no technical facility to scan the documents. The ECI is reluctant to share the copies of Form 17C. Is inexplicable. Copies of Part 1 of Form 17C are given to polling agents who are present at the booth, and there is no prohibition on their further dissemination. In Digital India, the claim that returning officers don't have the technical facility to scan and upload a couple of thousand pages is scarcely credible. On December 26, more than 6 months after the general elections, the ECI released a set of 42 statistical reports, terming it as a treasure trove for stakeholders, including academicians, researchers, election watchers worldwide. This too had no data from 17C, Form 17C, which would conclusively resolve the vexed issue of difference between votes polled and counted. Transparency is key to ensure public trust and participation in the electoral process. In 2024, the Supreme Court struck down electoral bond scheme as being violative of the voters' fundamental right to new information. A challenge to the new amendment has already reached the apex court. Rather than wait for the verdict of the judiciary, the ECI and the BJP would well uh, to realize that this amendment has no place in a democracy and withdrew it. The way forward for PM Kisan, the scheme which started off strong, has been providing assistance to fluctuating number of farmers over the past 6 years. The Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, which provides yearly income support of 6,000 to eligible farmers in three installments, has been through highs and lows both in terms of coverage and payout. It has been operational from December 2018. Originally intended for small and marginal farmers, the scheme, which was launched in February 19, was later extended to all farmers who owned lands where NDA alliance retained power in 2019. The government made it clear in parliament that there was no proposal to expand the scheme further to bring in tenant farmers under the fold. At the time of expansion in 2019, the scheme was expected to cost 87,000 crore to the public exchequer for 2019-20, with the total number of beneficiaries being around 14 crore. However, in the last 6 years, neither did the amount disbursed exceed 70,000 crore in any year, nor did the number of beneficiaries touch the 14.5 crore mark. As Table 1 shows, this is Table 1, 28 2019 amount transferred was 6,000 crore, 50,000 crore, 60,000 crore. So maximum is 67,000 crore. Allocation of the scheme at the beginning of 2019-20, 2021 was 75,000 crore each. But in both years, the expenditure on disbursement was around 49,000 to 61,000 crore. The year-on-year growth rate for 2020-21 was close to 25%, while it moderated to around 10% next year. However, it was in that year the high absolute figure of payout was highest, around 67,000 crore. With the authorities tightening the coverage of the scheme, the annual aggregate amount disbursed began going down and saw a 13% dip in 2022-23. Last year, the amount was 62,000 crore. Table 2 gives an account of the varying number of beneficiaries at the time of installment at a given time. Since the scheme was inaugurated, the government has made 18 times. The last payment was made in October 24. The number of beneficiaries started rising in the second year of implementation, as this trend has continued until the fourth year. Since then, the government, both at the center and states, have been weeding out ineligible persons. At the same time, they have been taking such steps to saturate the scheme with all eligible farmers. A major saturation drive commenced in November 2023 to include more than 1 crore farmers. Another round was carried from June to include more than 25 lakh farmers were made beneficiaries. At an all India level, the total number of beneficiaries at the time of release was approximately 9.59 crore. Of them, farmers from scheduled castes accounted for 12% and those from scheduled tribes accounted for 9%, while women constituted a little more than 20% of SCs and others. Their share among STs was around 29%. In December last year, the government informed Lok Sabha that it did not maintain any separate data for other backward classes who were included in the category of others. As per usual of the data given in Table 3, year-wise distribution of funds in 10 states. Uh, reveals that all of them has experienced up and downs. For example, Tamil Nadu, an important rice producing state, has 44.6 lakh beneficiaries in 2020-21. Now it has 21.9 lakh. Uh, the amount dispersed rose only to go down from 2000 crore to 1400 crore. In Manipur, the number of beneficiaries decreased by 70% between 2022-23 to 23-24. Farmers have been demanding a hike in annual payout. While considering this, the government should incentivize those who efficiently use water, electricity, and other inputs during production. IIT intact to be frozen at the present level. What led to Azerbaijan jet crash? Why has the Azerbaijani president said that the airliner was shot down? And what are the rules regarding aviation safety in conflict zones? What are the legal issues which come into play? And was international humanitarian law breached? On December 25, an Azerbaijan Airlines flight 4 Kilo Alpha Zulu 65 en route from Baku in Azerbaijan to Grozny, the capital of Chechnya in Russia, with 67 passengers and crew, faced a series of technical difficulties. The weather appeared to have been a factor, as the crew attempted to divert to Maks- Makhachkala in Russia. There was another diversion to Aktau in Kazakhstan by the eastern shore of the Caspian Sea, but the plane impacted the ground about 3 kilometers from Aktau airport and 38 passengers were killed. There are conflicting reports on the cause linked to a series of holes in part of the fuselage and survivor passengers' videos footage. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev said, "We can say with complete clarity that the plane was shot down. We are not saying that it was done intentionally, but it was done." Azerbaijan has said that the aircraft was ordered to fly across the Caspian Sea after it was denied landing at two Russian airports. Data from the black boxes in have been decoded in Brazil, where twin-engine aircraft and Embraer was manufacturer. The flight data site Flightradar24 has told Hindu, "We can confirm that flight was operating in an area affected by GPS jamming and spoofing. Hence, we did not see a large portion of the flight. The last portion of the flight was operated in an area of good coverage." The website of Azerbaijan Airlines say that airline, which is a member of IATA, is in full compliance of ICAO standards. The airline has announced the suspension of flights to several cities in Russia on the directive of Azerbaijan State of Civil Aviation Authority, following preliminary results from an investigation into the crash. The report on the President of Russia's official website, titled "Telephone Conversation with President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev" on December 28, 24, says the presidents had a detailed discussion on issues regarding December 25 crash. Vladimir Putin apologized for the fact that India incident happened in the Russian airspace. It was noted that during conversation, Azerbaijani passenger airliner was flying according to schedule and repeatedly tried to land at Grozny airport. At that time, Ukrainian unmanned combat aerial vehicles attacked Grozny, Mozdok, and Vladikavkaz, and Russian air defense systems were repelling these attacks. The Russian Investigative Committee initiated a criminal case under Article 263 of the Criminal Code. Initial investigations is underway. A media report says that flight data has been analyzed by the Aeronautical Accident Investigation and Prevention Center, Air Force Command central investigative body that is overseen by Brazilian Air Force. Investigators from Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Russia are involved. On January 3, the president of Kazakhstan, Kasım Zomat Tokayev, said 17 international experts, including those from ICAO and Interstate Aviation Committee, body representing some of Commonwealth independent states Azerbaijan, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, was invited to ensure an impartial and objective incident. What does accident highlight about conflict zone? It highlights that the operation of civilian flights in conflict zone is a complex issue that involves assessing the risk posed by ongoing hostilities. ICAO guidelines stress the importance of states to provide up-to-date risk assessment and advisory to airlines to potential threats, including military activity, missile launches, or other hazards. Airlines, in turn, must conduct their own risk assessments under international law, specifically the Chicago Convention and annexes, the responsibility of ensuring the safety of civil aviation lies with the states. If a crash is found to be caused by actions directly linked with Russia, whether international or negligent, questions of state responsibility and accountability under international law may arise, which may include legal actions and findings of criminal liability. As the flight is said to have been subject to severe electronic and communication interference, Dr. Shahidi said spoofing, sending false signals, and jamming, blocking, or disrupting signals can have severe impacts on aviation safety, particularly on navigation and communication systems. These technologies could interfere with the GPS or GNSS, for example, GPS, ADSP, and transponder signal and communication systems, enhanced cybersecurity measures, alternative navigation systems, and robust incident reporting mechanisms are needed to mitigate the risk. An ICAO spokesperson has told Hindu that ICAO has readied itself to support this investigation in the interest of aviation safety and security, deputing an ICAO expert to be deployed on site as an observer in the international investigation team. He said, the investigation as prescribed by Annex 13 shall be conducted with the sole objective of preventing future accidents and incidents, though the collection and analysis of safety data information. Annex 13 calls for a preliminary report to be produced within 30 days of accident, with a final report to follow within 12 months. Conflict zones with state and non-state players pose immense risk to civil aviation, and countries are responding to the growing threat with several initiatives. Canada's Safer Skies initiative is one such example, that was in response to shooting down of Ukraine International Airlines PS 752 in 2020. What are GPS interference hotspots? Flight radar says jamming of signals has been prevalent in area around Black Sea, while spoofing is common among Iraq, Ukraine, Russia, and also Eastern Mediterranean Sea. It says that flight crew are aware of GPS jamming and spoofing and are trained in advanced risk management. Are nation states being involved in air accidents? As the paper Navigating the Legal Horizon, lawyering the MH17 disaster, points out that there have been 9 major cases. Some of them include shooting down of the Cathay Pacific airliner by China in 1954, Libyan Airlines Flight 114 by Israel in 1973, Korean Airlines by the then Soviet Union, etc. Dr. Mahmoud Awas Foraki, Assistant Professor, Department of Public Law, has told The Hindu that accident poses important legal questions with regard to jurisdiction. Under the principles of international law, it has drawn attention to the absence, ownership, and management of responsibility and authority in international aviation regulation and state responsibility. In the investigations, there should be focus on how the existing international legal works and basis. For example, the Chicago Convention and the Montreal Convention regulate such occurrences, he says. The law applicable to the liability for damage in this context is the Montreal Convention. Azerbaijan Airlines may be financially responsible for making compensation payments, but the things get complicated if the state responsibility is engaged, more so in a missile strike scenario. If there is evidence that a state is involved, principles of state responsibility under international law may prevail under the Montreal Convention, and the responsibility of state may be under obligation to make reparation under customary international law. Another area of law is international humanitarian law. He says the Chicago Convention specifically bans the use of weapons against civil aircraft in flight, and if a state is involved, its conduct may amount to a breach of its law, especially if not in accordance with the principles of necessity and proportionality. Azerbaijan case, he says, highlights the necessity for more authoritative and codified regulation of international civil aviation activity, the enhancement of liability regulation at global level, and cooperation with the international legal framework. The website of Azerbaijan Airliner says the airline, which is a member of IATA, is in full compliance with ICAO standards. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev said, "We can say with complete clarity that plane was shot down. We are not saying that it was done intentionally, but it was done." Azerbaijan has said that aircraft was ordered to fly across the Caspian Sea after it was denied landing at two Russian airports. Azerbaijan Airlines may be financially responsible for making compensation payments, but things get complicated if state responsibility is engaged, more so in missile strike scenario. Rat hole mining, why the practice continues in spite of its hazards. On January 6, 2025, nine workers were trapped in flooded coal mine in Assam Dima Hasao district. Bodies of four of workers have been recovered and rescue work is still going. In this article dated November 29, 2023, Rahul Karmakar explains the dangers of rat hole mining. An oral question from the Supreme Court to the Union government continues to remain answered even as the rescue workers recover bodies of workers who died trapped in a flood hole mine in the Dima Hazar district in Assam on January 11, 2019. Topcourt has asked whether rat hole mines could possibly operate in the Northeast Hills without conveyance of officials. Lives are lost due to illegal mining. What about the officials who allowed this happen? Rat hole mining of two types is so named as it involves digging tunnels 3 to 4 feet deep, barely allowing workers to crawl in and out. They have to squat while extracting coal with pickaxes. The side cutting type of mining is usually done on hill slopes by following a coal seam, dark brown or black banded coal deposit, then layers of rock visible from outside. The second type, box cutting, entails cutting a circular or squarish pit at least 5 square meter in width up to the depth of 400 meters. Miners who go down in makeshift cranes or using rope and bamboo ladders dig horizontally after finding the coal seam. The tunnels are dug in every direction from the edge of the pit, resembling the tentacles of an octopus. Some workers from Assam lost their lives in coal mines of Meghalaya during dug using this crude method before and after the National Green Tribunal banned in April 2014. The government has little control over land in Meghalaya, sixth scheduled state, where Coal Mines Nationalisation Act of 1973 does not apply. The landowners are thus also owners of the minerals beneath. Coal mining boomed after Meghalaya attained statehood in January 1972. However, the terrain and expenses involved discouraged mine owners from employing advanced drilling machines. So, laborers mainly from Assam, Nepal, and adjoining Bangladesh risked hazards of rat hole mining, asphyxiation because of poor ventilation, collapse of mines due to lack of structural support, and flooding to earn thrice of 4 times as much as working in farms or construction sites. Apart from issues of safety and health, unregulated mining led to land degradation, deforestation, and water with high concentrations of sulfates, iron, and toxic heavy metals. Low dissolved oxygen and high biochemical oxygen demand. At least two rivers, Lukha and Mindu, became too acidic to sustain aquatic life. These factors led the NGT banning rat hole mining in Meghalaya in 2014, while observing there is obtained number of cases where by virtue of rat hole mining during the raining season, water flooded into mining areas resulted in death of many illegal mining and transportation of coal as mentioned in the interim reports of a one-man committee appointed by High Court of Meghalaya has continued despite ban and loss of lives. At least 17 miners were drowned in an illegal mine in the East Jantia Hills district, San, in December 2018 after the water gushed in from a river. Environmentalists and human rights activists began flagging the hazards of rat hole mining in Meghalaya 2 decades ago. The campaign intensified after Impulse, Meghalaya based NGO, began addressing the issue of human trafficking and child labor in such mines. Three reports prepared by NGO, first with Nepal based Esther Benjamin Trust in May 2010, second with Aid at Action in December 2010, and the last with Human Rights Now in July 2011, estimated that about 70,000 children, mostly from Bangladesh and Nepal, were employed in these mines because they were right sized to work in them. The Department of Mining and Geology refuted the claim, but under pressure from the Human Rights Commission admitted in June 13 that 222 children were employed in rat hole mines, specifically in East Jaintia Hills district. NGT ban came an year later. Unlike in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, coal seams in Meghalaya are very thin. Miners say makes rat hole mining more economically viable than open cast mining. The state has estimated reserve of 576 million tons of low ash high sulfur coal belonging to Ecocene Eocene age. The state has estimated 576 millions of low ash high sulfur coal belonging to Eocene age. The stakes for a section of locals have been so high that the state environment involved the that the state government has under pressure to facilitate the resumption of mining legally. In May 2023, Meghalayan Chief Minister Conrad K. Sangma said Coal Ministry approved mining leases for 4 of the 17 prospective license applicants. This would lead to commencement of scientific mining, ensuring minimal environmental impact through sustainable and legally compliant extraction procedures. Anti-mining activists who are assaulted by miners off and on said that scientific uh, would eventually be a fancy tag in state where profit has driven coal mining. As the Zimura Tunnel in Jammu and Kashmir becomes operational, a quiz on tunnels across the world. Name the longest rail tunnel in the world, which is also first flat route across Swiss Alps. No idea. Name the railway station connecting the UK and France, which has the world's longest undersea segment. Again, no idea. Name the under construction tunnel in India, which is slated to be the highest in the world once completed. This is one in Chenab. Oh no, I'm not sure. Maybe Zozila Tunnel. 20, name the 27-kilometer long structure, which is technically a ring and not intended for transportation, that runs under France-Switzerland border. Again, no idea. What is the significance of tunnel passing through Appalachian Mountains of Southwest Virginia in the US? No idea. So this is, see you in the next one.